What's up, Internet? I'm Jeff Gretler, head brand ambassador here at SpiceWorks, and I am live in the shadow of the AT&T Hotel and Conference Center, where in exactly 293 days, SpiceWorld will kick off for the 19th time. That's right, SpiceWorld 2026 is coming soon. But before we do that, let's go back 71 days to SpiceWorld 2025, where the mother of SpiceWorld, the spice therapist herself, Jen Slaski, gave an incredible closing keynote that really highlighted the magic of SpiceWorks. Hi and bye, keeping the magic with you. So we decided, let's have a special viewing of that keynote with the people who keep that magic alive, you. That's right, my favorite community, the SpiceWorks community. So let's all jump in that chat right now. Let's have us a watch party and stick around after the keynote for a few surprise announcements that I have. But without further ado, here's Jen Slaski's closing keynote from SpiceWorld 2025.
Back in 2008, right down the street at the Alamo Drafthouse in South Lamar, the very first SpiceWorld took place. And it created this energy, this community of all of you, and it's still going 18 years later. And that's incredible. That is not easy for a company to truck along like that for 18 years. It's an 18-year startup, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the person that's coming to do that closing keynote is responsible for that.
Mm-hmm.
I've been calling her the mother of SpiceWorld, if you will.
Yes, I'm doubling down on the mother of
Yes.
SpiceWorld, 100%.
So let's give her all the time she needs because she's going to make you feel something. So please welcome to the stage the mother of SpiceWorld, Jen Slaski!
Hello. Woo! How are we doing? You made it. Okay, I was back there and I hear a lot of things like mother, and I've been called a lot of things, but I hadn't heard that one yet. And just to set the expectation, when Jeff says this is going to be emotional, this is why I, of course, this is an emotional support duck, right? Okay, good. All right, I got it. So I figured I'd have this little guy up here with me because even though this feels like getting home, like I've got all this adrenaline, and so I'm a little bit nervous and excited to be here with y'all. But, you know, part of my nervousness is they wanted my slides like around 2 weeks ago, and I was like, okay, cool, here's what I'm going to talk about, but my brain doesn't stop on this stuff. And I thought I got to final, and then I was here yesterday, and it just always takes me back, and to get to hang out with all y'all and be part of this energy and be really moved by it, it changed what I wanted to talk about. And so last night I went to bed, and I was wrestling with myself, and I said, just stay the course, keep your slides. And then I get up this morning, and it occurs to me that I probably should have done some research on what people that have TED Talks do. Like, what is it when you're on stage? Because I don't do this that often. So I'm like, what is it that I should have looked at? Maybe I should Google that. And then I was like, oh, that's so classic old school me. I know what I should do. I should, for the first time, for the sake of these spice heads, use ChatGPT. Because I never have before. I am allergic to it. I have always been low tech, but I decided to go for it. And so, 7:37 a.m., this is what I asked. And I'm sure there's going to be some judgment, and you're like, Jen, it's not how you ask. You didn't put enough detail. So I'll learn, and y'all can teach me. But this is what I went ahead and asked, because ultimately I wanted y'all to love this. I want y'all to come back next year. And I was like, first two words, I was like, ooh, you had me at excellent question. Okay, I've heard this, and I know that this is what happens, but it still feels really good. And then, and you're asking the right one, and it's like, oh, I love it. It feels so good to be right. And then I read the opening of a keynote is where you either own the room or lose it. And I was like, oh, like no pressure. I was like, maybe I shouldn't have done this because now I'm like, and so I was pacing myself because I didn't want to go and digest it all. But I was like, I'll go a couple more lines down. And then it was like really deep, and it was like must be emotionally gripping and intellectually stimulating and instantly relatable to hook them. And I was like, oh man, no. So I was like, I'm not going to read any further because my imposter syndrome is just going to get like off the charts more and more. And so like, let's just stay the course and trust the process. But I couldn't let it go. So as of 30 minutes before, I tried to make sure I got a hook in there. So this is my attempt, my moment of truth, to like make you feel like I get you and hook you and like we're all gonna kumbaya and you're gonna love it, okay? So as I need some reassurance that you feel like I get you with this hook. Okay, yeah, nailed it. Okay, I know, so to be honest, I wasn't that confident and I was like, I better have some backups. So my next backup was, not only Spiceworks, but Spiceworks on a bronking bull. Okay, cool. And then this was kind of a gimme. Jeff Gretler not only looking like this, but Chelsea looking at him like she should be because he's looking like that. Okay, and then the last one, and it might be one of my personal favorites, is how much do we all love Peter? Okay, and the thing that I love about Peter, and I've always loved, is he's got this smooth groove, calm energy. That is not my energy, but even up to the run-through, my slides, there were some issues, and Peter was just very calm and stoic. And so I thought everybody needed to really get to know the totality of Peter Tsai. Who knew that he could breakdance? Okay, all right, well anyway, thank you all for playing along there. Again, I'm Jen Slaski. I started at SpiceWorks back in 2006, and I've been given a lot of different titles, and people give me a lot of gracious credit for a lot of things that at the end of the day were really more a testament to the team that we had on board at that time. But one of my favorite things is people used to call me the master Kool-Aid maker. And I loved that. And I feel like that was so much the essence always back in the day of what we want to do is to have people feel that inspiration and that special je ne sais quoi, just something that was different about this experience. And so that's the deal, the Kool-Aid. And so I hope that you've been enjoying the Kool-Aid here, and there's going to be more later. But really, I was at SpiceWorks for 10 years, a decade of my life, and during that, we ended up very, being humbled by winning a lot of different awards that I won't go through. But again, the awards were really recognizing our culture as a workplace and the brand. And a lot of it was we tried to treat employees and Spiceheads very, very much the same, very, very human, and keep things fun and keep things real, and just kind of be good humans. And that was recognized by a lot of really cool people, and so that always felt really, really neat, because to me it was a coup. It was like, people are like, how did you figure that out? And it's like, everything you need to know you learn in kindergarten. Just, be kind, be true, ask questions, try to help people. And so after 10 years, I left and I went and I started consulting with other companies to try to help other leaders, smaller phase companies, do something similar. Not the same thing, because every company is different, every culture is different, every user group is different. But I was so happy, and I knew that people were so happy to work at SpiceWorks and be part of it, that I wanted to go spread that happiness other places, because at the end of the day, we spend most of our lives at work. So that felt like it would be a very veritable purpose for me. It had been a decade I was ready. So during that, because I'm also a huge nerd, I just started to think, what is it that's really going on that makes this human connection magic happen? And so during that time, I got my master's in mental health counseling and also started practicing as a therapist. And so right now, I do a little bit of all of that. And in the meantime, Spice workers, once a Spice worker, always a Spice worker. We stay in touch because of this magic. It's something, even once you leave SpiceWorks, my blood is still orange, I'm sure, and a little bit spicy in there. And so as part of this, there was just a reunion actually down the street, about 75 former Spice workers that got together, and everybody just you can feel people beaming. But at one of those get-togethers, maybe 2 years ago, Gretler and I were having a margarita, And he's there with one of the former Spice workers that was part of the IT team, and they're talking about all this AI. And I'm just like, I mean, do you guys want salt with your margarita? Or like, what are we doing here? Like, why are we talking about? And then we started joking, and Jeff's like, oh, like, maybe at some point, you want to come get involved at Spiceworks. And I was like, I don't think that they'd take me anywhere because I don't know this AI stuff. It makes me kind of nervous because I'm always so low tech and a late adopter, and I just don't get it. I was like, if I presented anything, I'd probably just be like, hi, I'm Jen, HI, like just good old-fashioned human interaction. And so be careful what you do, especially when Gretler's around, because boom, here we are. And so today, that's what I really want to talk about, is this whole notion in a world of AI, human interaction and why it still matters, and the essence of human inspiration. And I love that this has been a theme at the conference around human intelligence, that like the humans, we're not going anywhere. And so I'm sorry, ChatGPT, I appreciate that we had a moment this morning over my coffee and that you helped me out here, but we're gonna focus on the humans from here. And we're gonna talk a bit later also about like what's happening with this magic. Like I hope you can still feel it right now. And so, to jump to the end, spoiler alert is you all are the magic. You're the magic that makes SpiceWorks what it is. You're the magic that makes SpiceWorld what it is, like you human beings. And I'm gonna come back to this picture, but these are some of my new friends from last night. When I sat down, actually not knowing a lot of people at the tables, and I was feeling all sheepish, and sure enough, I sit down with a group of new friends, and really within 30 minutes, my heart just felt full, and I didn't want to leave. I was actually late for the alumni reunion, and everybody's texting me, like, where are you? And I'm like, I'm at SpiceWorld, where are you? So here's where we're going today. We're going to talk a little bit of history on SpiceWorld. Jeff mentioned it. But I think it helps to hear some of these things to be reminded of like where we come from, because I think it will help you appreciate even more what a remarkable accomplishment it is that the team now, X amount of many years later, 18 years later, has kept true to that, has kept the Kool-Aid going, has kept this authenticity and this human factor that you feel and that you appreciate, and you know it's different than the other tech companies you work with and the other tech conferences you go to. And then we're going to shift in a little bit of the nerdy, like neuroscience of what is it that's going on, because it is interesting to really like understand how the magic happens, right? What's going on in our operating systems? See what I did there? I snuck in like a little tech reference, like so you would feel like, okay, like. But I know it probably like I might have got that wrong. And then we're going to talk about how can you take it home, because it's always like you're on a high and you leave, and then it's like womp womp, like oh, and the next day you kind of can feel like a little bit of postpartum after SpiceWorld. It's a thing. So buckle up, because I'm going to go through the history maybe a little bit quickly in the spirit of getting towards where we're moving. Okay, so a little secret that's always really like. It just is what it is to me, but when I joined in 2006, what my goal was actually to get out of tech. Like, that was my hope, and that's what I was desperately seeking to do. I'd worked at a company, Motive, which was where the 4 original co-founders had worked, here in Austin, enterprise software, yada, yada, but the job was energizing because I've always been creative, the people were super smart, but like, I just wasn't inspired by the way things were done. And like, for instance, we would have maybe a press release about a product coming out, and in order to ask a customer to talk about it, we'd have to get on a phone with them 3 times to basically help them rehearse what to say. And I was just always so confused. I was like, why can't they just tell them what they think? And they're like, oh, because if they say this or that, then what would happen if? But it was all very scripted, and it felt very inauthentic to me. And I was like, oh, like I want to get out of this, but I knew it would be harder to get out of because all my friends were in tech, and that in Austin in the day, that's kind of like what you did. And it was this job that people are like, why would you leave it? But I was like, I just really want to do something different. So 2006, I reconnect with the founders, and they're like, hey, will you come help us? We're starting this company called SpiceWorks, and could you maybe do some email marketing for us to start? And I'm like, and by the way, these guys obviously very smart. I'm like, y'all, you're very Spice what? Like, you named the company SpiceWorks? Like, what are y'all doing over there? Like, is this an adult TV station? Like, are you guys cooking? Like, and you want me to try to get emails through spam filters with a name like that? And I was like, and so they told me a little bit about what they were doing, and they'd had this background, and they're like, we just want to have fun because the enterprise business was such a drag. And it turned out they thought similarly to how I did in some regards. And I was like, okay, cool, we're kind of on the same page here. But then I was like, I'm going to get sucked back in. Like, this is my opportunity. And so in a moment of vulnerability and courage, I told them, look, here's the thing, guys. I will help you, but I'm not staying. I want to get out. I just read this book recently by this guy, Tim Sanders, called Love is the Killer App, and I'm super inspired. And he says these are the 3 things that if you can do at work, your company will be successful. So I want to go be that. I want to do that. I want to be part of a company that does that and is heart-led. And people use words like love. And they're like, well, guess what? Actually, Jen, like, we have been interviewing IT pros, and every time we talk to them and say, what tech apps do you absolutely love? They blink, cock their head, and they're like, love? I don't love any of them. I don't love any of my vendors. And they're like, so that's what we want to do. We want to go be that, and so we want your help. And I didn't know if it was true. I mean, I thought they were bamboozling me a little bit, but I was like, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good play. And I trust these guys, so I was like, okay, I need to do some work and get paid, so yeah, I'll give it a go. And I will take them up on their offer to say, you go like make that version, this tech version of that. And I didn't know what that meant. So 2007 rolls around, and we end up getting an article, an opportunity to be featured in the Wall Street Journal. And my edict is to go make sure that I find a great user to talk to them. And I can't even remember how I found this gentleman that you see pictured. His name was John Chorney. But what I can remember is when I called for the prep session, we just ended up having this awesome conversation. He was such a good guy and just so genuine, so down to earth. And we ended up talking about meatloaf. I don't know if there was bacon in the meatloaf, but it didn't come up. But so it was a very just human, down-to-earth story. And by the end of it, I'd kind of run out of time for any of the prep stuff. And John had to go because he was very busy. And he asked me, he's like, hey, is there anything else? I've done these before, and this is a really different prep session, Jen. Like, I usually get a script of what I'm supposed to say. I was like, and I just felt confident. I was like, you know what, John, like, just be real. Just tell him, like, you love the product. Like, I trust, just say what you want to say, and that was that. So article comes out, and it was amazing. And it was just like, my boss at the time, Jay, said, how did you prep him? Like, I was like, okay, I'm going to tell you the truth, Jay. Like, I didn't. And look what happened. Like, way better than any script. Like, that's just heart and soul authenticity and real. And so everybody was very excited about that and this notion of like, okay, let's keep on, love, authenticity. And about 2 weeks later, there's an envelope comes about this big, old manila folder with my name on it and a piece of snail mail. Like, nobody had actually gotten that. And they were like, Jen, you've got mail. And I was like, oh, you guys, that's so cute. Like that. They're like, no, like literally, you have mail. Like, here it is. So I open this, and in it is a New York Times article about basically the Jack Kerouac of meatloaf hunting that is journeying across the U.S. to try to find the U.S.'s best meatloaf. And John, just on a Post-it note, says, Dear Jen, my wife Linda and I came across this weekend as we were reading the Times, thought of you and thought you'd enjoy it. Take care, John. And I just stood there, and people were like gathering around my cubicle, and they're like, wait, who's that from? It's like, this is the guy that was in the Wall Street Journal for us. This is John. And they were just like, nobody got it. And the thing that struck me is my dad, when I was in college, would always send me articles with Post-it notes. And that was, for me, I was like, this is amazing. Like, what is going on here? Like, this is a job? I'm getting paid for this? I'm getting paid to interact with these awesome, earnest, hardworking people that then I connect with, and this is what I get? And so I posted it in the community, and then all of a sudden, everybody started chiming in with recipes for meatloaf, and their grandma's secret recipe, and this is the ingredient, and how do you like your meatloaf, and oh, do you put ketchup on it? And I watched this happen, and it was like the impressions, and it was a very popular post. And so then I was like, look at them helping each other and enjoying each other about things even beyond IT. Like, they'd already started helping each other, and the community was new, but this was new about like kind of this camaraderie and this fun-loving thing. And so I saw this as my huge opportunity where I was like, okay, I want to bring this to life. I want to bring these interactions and this connection that we're seeing happen in the community to life live, and to bring them in person, and it'll be like the brand come alive, the community come alive. And so I decide I want to do this experiment. And so I go to the co-founders, and I'm all excited, and they're basically like, no, they're so expensive. We know what those are like. We've been in tech for so long. They're stodgy. The coffee sucks. You pay a lot of money, and everybody's uncomfortable. And by the way, these are IT pros. Like, they're not going to want to get together and talk, Jen. They're not like you. They're not going to be all like, yay, and like wanting to be like hugging and high-fiving. And I was like, I don't know, you guys. I'm calling BS. Like, I think so. And then I called them out. I was like, hey, remember that promise you made me? What about this whole love thing and this thing that you were going to let me? And they're like, okay. So they gave me a shoestring budget, especially compared to what was usually required. But I was just like, I knew, I believed, I really did. I was like, if we can just get them together, I'll use this budget, I'll do whatever I have to do. And I don't care about the money. The currency is going to be the human factor. And I want them to come and feel like so welcome and so at home and do everything we have to for them to just connect. And so, but before the thing is I'm all heart and soul, but then I'm like, oh, I might need to figure out some content so they can actually convince their boss to let them come, that they're going to learn something, and it's going to be a little more than like, just like, eat, drink, and be merry. And so my buddy that I'm so friends with, Tabrez Syed, he was SpiceWorks' first employee, and he actually was the first ever community manager, and he went over to oversee the community and the growth of that, and is now an AI evangelist in his own right. But I went to Tabrez, I call him Tabby, and I was like, I've got this idea, and Tabrez as an introvert is like, please don't do this to us. It's not a good idea, Jen. Like, it sounds exhausting already. And I was like, Tabrez, I promise y'all are going to love it. I said, but I need you to post in the community to ask them if they would come and to ask them what the topics are. Like, can you help me out here? Because I think you're going to have more credibility. So Tabrez does that, and then people start chiming in right away. And ultimately, we had our first agenda, totally crowdsourced, because we just asked they weren't called Spice, y'all weren't Spice heads then, the IT pros told us what they would want to learn. And even though I'd never done this before, I'd never done a conference, I totally had imposter syndrome. I was like, okay, let's do this, we can figure it out. So 6 months later, as Jeff said, we were down the road in a movie theater because it was the only place I could get on the cheap, sticky beer on the floor. It didn't even have Wi-Fi in the beginning, so that was a problem, and our IT pro at the time really loved it when the week before I realized this and said, could you build us a network? Is that hard? I don't know. This might be why if you saw the video about me, the marketing chick, they put me in a box, like, true story. So anyways, we did it a day and a half. We started on a Friday at noon so that people wouldn't have to take off work. Made it really, really cheap. I think it was like $99, and only to make sure that we knew that they were coming. And it was amazing. It was, I feel like that year was this turning point because it was that magic, the first time people really experienced that all together, even for our team at SpiceWorks. And doing it on the cheap, what I will say, you can see that picture there where there's table linens. Heather, who's here and has been with this event and our company since the very beginning, 2008, had to actually twist my arm and tell me we're putting linens on the table. It's like, I need to save money. I am on the cheap. I said I would do it on budget. I want them to feel like at home. I don't want any highbrow stuff. And she's like, Jen, tablecloths are just civilized. Like, we just need some. And I was like, okay. So anyway, you have Heather to thank that there are still linens here. But in general, at the end, we did a survey. And what I remember is, for me, it was all the Oprah comments. There was a lot like, this was so great, I learned a lot, and again, all the important things to help them be better IT pros so they can learn skills, so they could actually have real meaningful conversations with the vendors that were there talking tech as opposed to just being the talking heads and just doing the acronym kind of marketing stuff that I can say and I can call out, because I had to do that before I was one of them. But I remember these quotes in my brain where it was all around like, just finally, people that get me. And there really were, like, my big sort of like glorious gloating after that was like, everybody was on cloud nine, and I had pictures of people shaking hands, but like high-five and even hugging at the end. And like, so much so that at the end, before people left, they said, we don't want to wait another year. How do we don't want to wait? And then they're posting in the community, and people are like, man, we missed out. Like, I couldn't get budget, or my boss didn't think this was a real thing, or my boss thought it was an adult TV station, and I was trying to like. So 2 months later, we launched SpiceCore, which were basically SpiceWorks user groups. And it was actually during this effort when one IT pro said, wow, this is really becoming a movement. We're going to need a real name. And during this time is when somebody chimed in and said, what if we call ourselves Spice Heads? And then a few other people chimed in, and then we had a contest and we voted, but that's where actually the name Spice Heads came from. But it was just like so much for that introvert theory is what I went back and I told the co-founders. And to their credit, they were always great about saying like when they were wrong or when they didn't know. And so they were like, all right. And then they're like, all right, Jen, get on it. Like, when is the next one happening? And it was like, oh, wait, I thought I was going to get to sleep and recover for about 1 week, but no such luck. So then we just continued planning them. And from there, I mean, really, it just kept going and growing, and the spice kept flowing. And every year, people would say, that was the best SpiceWorld. And we'd be like, how are we going to top that? And inevitably, people would continue to say that. And in these pictures, you can kind of see like those spice heads with the chili peppers. Like, and then in the left, there's actually vendors. Like, our vendors got really into it. Like these tech marketers that had gone to these conferences, like were like, this is actually fun. Like we're having good conversations, and like we don't have to like talk like robots. And like they had fun too, and they got into it. That's Matt Stevenson there on the left, that you can see he had a custom-made suit for that. He was with Symantec back then, and rest his soul. Unfortunately, Matt passed away last year. But what I will say is when he did, and the post was made on LinkedIn, there were so many former Spice Heads and Spice workers and even other vendors that had just been all the years at SpiceWorld that were chiming in and really moved by this. So there were relationships developed over the many years, not only at SpiceWorld, but that would continue in the community. A woman that came to SpiceWorld was the first that ever got a tattoo. That really happened. That is not legend. Like, even when we heard it happen, we're like, that's crazy. I was like, I'm not getting a tattoo. Like, are you getting a tattoo? And we're like, no. Like, that is amazing, though. Glenn, where's my buddy Glenn? There he is. SpiceWorld number 5, you probably heard this story before. Like, the team is just scattered, chaotic as days before, and I get a call, and the receptionist, Karen, is like, Glenn is here to see you. And I knew exactly who she meant, and I said, send him up. And he's like, I've got this crazy idea I'd like to do, and then there you see it. He went on his own time and dime. All he asked for was a logo. He created this Spiceopoly game, and we surprised the co-founders with it on stage. And I know that he's done every 5 years, it seems, he does some special, unique reveal and surprise. So I'm not going to put him on the spot, but I'm just saying 20 years is in 2, so you've got some time to be thinking there, Glenn, on what comes next for your surprise. But so like all this stuff, like great. Well then, a couple months ago, as I've been getting re-involved in the Spiceworks community, I just go ahead and post as I know that I'm going to be here. I'm like, I'm just curious what the vibe is now. Like, time has passed and times change, people change. It's just the way it goes. It's the physics of organizations, of the world, and that's cool. Like, but I just want to get tuned in on where we're at. So I just post this in the community and say, right now, like, if you had to say SpiceWorld in one word, and of course our friend Slava, where you at? Immediately chimes in and ever Mr. of Brevity just says home. And I'm like, oh, that's nice. But I know Slava from back in the day, so I think he's probably just trying to make me feel good. So then these posts keep coming, and I'm like, this is awesome. I can't wait to meet Ode to Joy. I definitely don't know them, but like, my people, all caps, that's awesome, Ode to Joy. And then not only my people, but thank you so much, because I never see anybody else use the orange heart, but it's like, speaking of love, I love this. So these comments continued in this thread, and if you're interested, you can go find it. But this I love too. It's like, just I wasn't nervous about being there. Just back to this whole, like, we always wanted people to feel welcome and like themselves, and like there was this place. And so back to the very first 2008, 2018, here's what people are still saying. Like, my heart just swelled, and I was like, you know, kudos to those that have taken and carried the torch to keep this going. But I also loved that vendors are chiming in with the same thing, with the same, like, wow, like, we think it's personal too. And this was so genuine from Mike. And this was always a thing. This is where IT all comes together. And we're in it together, and we talk like humans. And then, of course, this was my favorite because it made so much sense to me. And I was like, surely that is a technical term, but I love it. But the point was, I was really blown away. And I was like, here we are, 18 years later. I got on the phone with Glenn, and we had to catch up. And I was like, you've been there every year still since, why? And he's like, the relationships. Like, the relationships are real that I build there and that I take with me. And every year I think, maybe this is the year I'm busy, life's gotten stressful. But he said he never regrets going. And this has been a staple for all these 18 years that it's been going on. And I feel like I didn't expect this, honestly, even though I knew it. But like, when I sat down with these folks last night, it was absolutely that. And I just popped down. Like, I don't think they knew who I was, nor should anybody here have needed to know that. And I just started talking to them. I was like, well, what do y'all think of the conference? They're like, amazing. And they're saying all these really great things. And I was like, well, why? Like, what is it about it? Like, how many have you been to? And for many of them, it was their very first one. Some had been back. And when I just led with the question, it was amazing. And I was like, well, I saw this post in the community where it was asked SpiceWorld in one word or phrase, what would you say? And I heard words from these folks like friendship. Somebody said, I'm just grateful. I'm grateful it's still here, this place. Somebody said, like, real. Like, so all these same words last night, my new friends were sharing, and it was absolutely amazing. And then it's almost like I couldn't have scripted it better because they're like, I just don't want to wait another year. Like, this is a special place. You can be real, and you can admit when you don't know something. And so it's easier to learn stuff when you can just say things out loud that you're unsure of. And even with vendors, we learn more like that. And so then in the middle there, Jimmy pipes up, and Jimmy's like, well, like, do you have any users in your area? I run a Spice Corps. And then the other folks are like, what's a Spice Corps? And they got into this whole conversation about connecting with other IT pros in their area. And like, as the person that was always thinking like, hey, how can we make sure they're aware of programs? Like, I was just beaming because I didn't have to do anything. It just had that life of its own that's always been there. And so what you're experiencing here, that is this living, breathing thing that is beyond one person or one team or even 1 year, I want to talk about the nerdy stuff about like what's going on from a neuroscience perspective. And in general, like this is like kind of pretty wild. Like even recently, there's all these studies done you can look up. But right, wrong, or indifferent, I always kind of feel like, okay, those folks at Harvard have some credibility. Like, let's see, like, and they did a 10-year study over the course of a decade. And they found that it's the quality of our connections that have the greatest impact on our long-term well-being, sense of well-being. And this book here, The Geography of Bliss, there's a lot of books on that, but this correspondent went around the world for a year to try to figure out what's the common thread with happiness across cultures that are very different, across cultures that have very different histories, and across cultures that are in different phases of their life story. Like maybe some had just recovered even from war, some were dealing with any number of things that a country can be dealing with. And across the board, he found that it was the quality of the local connections that they had with other human beings that, regardless of what happened, made the big difference. And in fact, they also found that lack of connection was related to a whole host of really no bueno medical implications. And the one that struck me most was that literally like not having enough healthy human connection is proven to be worse than smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Like think about that. That was pretty stark and pretty wild to me. And so I was thinking today, I was like, I want to share some of this stuff that I've learned on my kind of like geeky road as a counselor and in school. And there's this thing that you learn in the biz, if you will, called attachment theory. And we all have attachment styles based on this. And you can look this up later. I won't be able to do it justice. But in general, the premise is that from the moment we are in the womb even, we are wired naturally for connection. And so once we're born, we immediately are seeking connection with our caregiver. And that affects how our neurological systems end up getting wired for the first 2 years of our life. And it makes the biggest difference and has huge implications for how we connect and relate with people later and in our closest relationships. And in general, the more available a caregiver is and the more warmth that they convey, the better your neurological system ends up getting wired from the sense of feeling safe and feeling connected. And the key reason for this is because it's biological survival. It's evolutionary mechanics around this notion of you want to be connected because you're going to have a better chance of survival when you do feel connected and safe with others. And so, I am not a brain expert. Please do not, please know that there is so much more complicated descriptions of this that could be given. But in general, there's two parts of the brain, the wizard brain and the lizard brain. Lizard brain being like the old school, like primal, like all the stuff that was in our brain and evolving and developing before we became human. So the funny thing is we spend most of our day doing this stuff where we're thinking in our human brain, and we actually think that that's where most of our action and behavior comes from. But only 30% of it originates in this part of the brain. The rest of the 70% originates over here in the lizard brain. Because in general, those are the mechanics that are about survival, which has been preceding us for eons and eons, right? Like the human part of the brain is like the puppy, whereas these guys are the OGs, like the goat, the grandiose goats of the brain. And the mammalian part of our brain is where, when things evolved, that was how, like with being in the tribe, the herd, you were able to survive easier because you had more protection. Again, these are like real basics. So in general, when that happens, to bolster it and we feel human connection, there is this hormone, oxytocin, that gets released. Again, all the elegance of survival. And when that gets released, we feel even a greater sense of bonding and connection to the human. So you hear it all the time when people have their babies and then parents hold them right there in the delivery room. They're like, I just couldn't even explain it. This thing came over me and it was just like I heard violins and music, and like it's weird that they don't seem to remember that when the kiddos start driving at 16, but that's beside the point. But anyway, that is the power of oxytocin. And it's also why disconnection is subconsciously or consciously our greatest fear. And this could mean like why people fear public speaking so much, it's the number one, is because they're fearful of judgment. I mean, it is. That's why I have my emotional support duck up here too. Even in all the years I've been here, like you worry, like what are people going to think? Are they going to like me? Are they going to think I'm dumb? Are they going to think I'm silly? Are they going to whatever it is, right? So that's this notion of fear, and it's from a survival place. And that's also why we have imposter syndrome. Is Justin in the room? Justin did a talk. There he is back there, Justin. He did a talk yesterday, former Spice worker back there. He did a talk yesterday on imposter syndrome. Who was in that session? Give us a holler. Woo! There were about 80 people by my count, not a numbers girl, but like, because we all feel imposter syndrome, and this is why, the sense of disconnection, you just get anxious. And I could do a whole nother session on this, and maybe Jeff and I can continue this. Like, I'm not anti-AI, I'm not saying that. But what I will say is I experienced firsthand this morning how and why ChatGPT, if not managed incredibly thoughtfully, because of the way our brains are wired for connection, and because of how we fear disconnection, I can absolutely see how imposter syndrome ends up skyrocketing over the next several years because we're so afraid to think for ourselves. So we're like, well, what does ChatGPT say? What is the answer? And starting there, we won't take those risks. We won't say, well, what do I know? And so again, not going to be a whole soliloquy on that. And again, I think it has its benefits, but it's like kind of like alcohol, like drink responsibly, like ingest this responsibly because of our neurological systems. It's why we're hooked on social media. It's our neurological systems. And it's all that lizard brain that we don't even realize is 70% in the background. And even if you think about this now too, here, you're like, okay, cool, Jen, but most people are saying they love it here. They don't feel judged here. They feel welcome here. Well, as it turns out, when you have that sense of connection, like I talked about with caregiver later in your life, your lizard brain is continually scanning for first signs of danger that might threaten disconnection. And as soon as your brain tells you things are safe, you can relax, and then the space opens up and you shift into the part of your brain that allows for true connection to happen. And these are the things kind of in the people, like, without realizing it, that we are scanning for from a primal level. It's like, does somebody seem to have a welcoming gesture on their face? Do they smile? Like, is their energy welcoming? All these things we react to without even realizing it. And when we feel safe and when we tune into those things where it's like, I feel welcome, I feel like I'm among my people, I feel like I can be myself, I feel like I can be vulnerable, I feel like I can say when I don't know, or I'm scared, or here's what's going on in my life, or any number of things, that's when this magic that we're experiencing here happens. But the key is that it happens most intensely when we are in person, because biomechanically, there is an energy that's being emitted from what's called the vagus nerve. It starts in your brain, goes all the way down your body into your gut. And so when you have that sense, when you're like, I don't know, I just had a gut feeling, or I don't know, I just didn't like that guy. Like, he just set me off, and I can't say exactly why. It's because your neurological system has taken in all those bits of information to give you that sensation. And when you're in person and you realize that someone is safe and welcoming, and you can have the courage to be vulnerable with them, that's when there is this energetic attunement. It's been measured. There's a frequency that happens, and that releases even more of the oxytocin that I was talking about. That's why we all feel good. And hopefully, while you all are feeling pretty dang good, are we still feeling good? All right, good. Glad. Okay, now on that note, womp womp. In modern living, digital modern living actually is working against our natural sense of well-being, because the more that we are on these screens and behind screens, practically the less time we are spending in person with human beings. And there is this book right now called The Dose Effect that if you have any interest in this, like the brain chemistry and science of all this, please get this or listen to it. It's awesome. It's very accessible, but it's called The Dose Effect. And T.J. Power has written about, like, in modern day, like what's going on with the modern era that's requiring so much of us, and all this extra content that's out there. It's so ubiquitous. All the answers now of like the pressure of feeling like what's right to go find it, and just constantly using technology to save time, yet when the time is saved, I'm not hearing many people be like, yeah, and then I went and I used AI for that, and then I went to my son's baseball game because of AI. I don't know, might be happening, but people find time to use that time to work more so they can be more efficient. And there's a lot of here, like why this is related to well-being. Again, very gross summary of this. But what they concluded through measuring is we're now in this digitally induced oxytocin deficit because being amid technology and these, again, not bad, and this is part of it. The point is we just got to be mindful. But this is a really like basic summary where TJ Power goes through and talks about all these different chemicals that are basically the cocktail that makes us feel good and gives us this sense of well-being and is really fostering of good mental health over time and resilience and all these things that allow us to feel a sense of optimism amid a lot of things in the world that can really get us down, or even just general life things that happen that we can't avoid. And I highlighted the oxytocin here because you've already heard the purpose. We talked about connection and the killer. I know it's such an extreme term, but like just the reality of what these doing neurologically. But the antidote is this in-person contact. And the key thing to realize is it's like you show up and you're in person and you've done this, but there's hacks that you can do because you're thinking, well, we live in a technological world, Jen. Like, what planet are you on? Like, this is not Back to the Future. We can't go back. It's here, and it's good. There's an immense amount of progress and all goodness around technology. So that is not my point. But it is important that we be mindful of how it is that we can naturally amp up these chemicals in our brain that are being naturally depleted by the modern world that we live in. And so I'm going to go through a few of these with the time that I have left. We talked a little bit about the one on top, like prioritizing face-to-face interaction, but kind of key things to know about that: eye contact makes a difference. Like literally, like being thoughtful about when you meet somebody and you shake their hand and make eye contact and literally hold it for 3 seconds. The less you do that, the less comfortable it is. But that makes a difference. Releases oxytocin. High fives releases oxytocin. Any physical contact. When you hug someone, if you are thoughtful about hugging them for 5 seconds and holding that hug for 5 seconds, you will double the amount of oxytocin that is released in that time. I don't expect there's going to be a ton of kissing that goes on here. I'll leave that to you. But when you get home, if like you've missed your family and you want to be like, I missed you after that hug, you want to give them a big old smooch, same thing. Let that kiss 5 seconds. And again, triples the dose there. The more that physical contact connection. Practice active listening. Justin talked about this in his speech. It's really like when somebody says something, it's hearing them. It's being like, yes, okay, like I hear you. I can understand why that might bug you. Even if you just told me something crappy about me that makes me feel really bad, if you can take a deep breath and be like, I think what I heard you say. Their neurological system, when they hear that, releases oxytocin and relaxes, and so you can be more in a moment of connection. Relationship, my goodness, the science of relationship, all of this at home. Join a social group or community. That's evident based on what I said. Like, no, go be with humans. That's what happens. Show appreciation and kindness. You can actually, if they say, if you get up and every single day, make it a point to think of one person that you can thank or compliment. And if you can say that to them in person, make eye contact, even the barista at Starbucks, you're like, you know what, thank you. You were really heckin' efficient there getting that. I love it. Or maybe you just send a text to a colleague and you say, hey, I just want to say, like, I really want to thank you for your help. Even better if you make a good old-fashioned phone call. When you do that and show appreciation, kindness, and that connection, it releases oxytocin. Being vulnerable and open. That's all we're talking about. Like, it takes courage. You're worried about the disconnection, but when you take a breath and you do that, the other person also relaxes, and then you both get flooded with oxytocin. And then back to just what we were talking about, just being thoughtful. There's a lot of apps. You guys know all this. You know the whole deal on how you can, with these screens that we get hooked on, manage that. And I think that that's the thing. Like, congrats, because you guys are like totally dosed up on oxytocin from being here. But that's really the magic of like what's happening here. But it's about humans and us all thinking this and feeling this. And it's back to my friends that were there at dinner. And the thing that was really cool to me is when I did this presentation, I hadn't even made the connection that like, oh my gosh, like, look what this still is. Like, people say, I love SpiceWorks. I love SpiceWorld. Like, this is what happened with that guy, Tim Sanders, way back when. He's an MIT fellow, very smart dude. Share your knowledge. Raise your hand if you shared some knowledge or you were the benefit of somebody sharing their knowledge while you were here. Okay. Share your network, contacts that you know. Share your compassion. Like, all of this stuff, like, you all experienced is basically with SpiceWorks here. SpiceWorks being that killer app. And so you know the drill. You know when you leave here and whatnot, you can get into the community, right? Peter was talking yesterday with the Aberdeen guys about like the state of SMBIT and about jobs and how they're going to change. Like, SpiceWorks is where you can. You've got these connections. There are the vendors. You can get better at your job. You can learn the skills. You can ask the questions you don't know. Take advantage of that. It is right there, and it is a no judgment zone. It will help you continue to grow your career and feel that sense of camaraderie and support and competence and credibility. But also, there's a place having fun, just jokes, blowing off steam. And even a couple weeks ago, I saw mental health in the workplace. There's vulnerability happening there. There's people like, hey, are you feeling like this? This is tough. And I see so many beautiful connections happening there on all regards. So go. When you leave here, if you're not already in the community, make it a point to go get in the community. If you are in the community and you're not there that often, make an effort, that 2-minute thing. Maybe it's just 2 minutes in a day that you spend, or even a week, just whatever it is, a little bit more. Connect with Spice Heads near you. So SpiceCores still exists. They're user meetup. They're Spice Heads in your area. And in general, if you scan this QR code, this is for Spice Buddies, they will help you get connected with Spice Heads in your area so that you don't have to wait another year. And it could just be getting together for beers, but it's going to make a difference, and you're going to find that support and those relationships and keep the oxytocin flowing. And anybody that I'm in the community, like, come grab me after if you have questions. I love to geek out about this stuff, and I'm just super honored to still be part of the family here. This really does feel like a family reunion. And so with that, I just want to say thank you all. Thank you to the SpiceWorks employees that have kept this spice flowing. Thank you, the Spice Heads that are here, the ones that have come several years, the ones that it's your first year. I really did believe that this was something that would matter, and you all show me that I was onto something. And so thank you for keeping the magic flowing. And with that, I'd like you to go forth and have so much fun here with Chelsea and Jeff are coming back, and then you guys have a big party this evening. Stay human, stay connected, and stay spicy, my friends.
All right. How awesome was that? How awesome was that to have Jen Slaski back at SpiceWorld, back on stage, the Spice Therapist? Thank you so much for joining us in the chat. We were still just chatting. I was literally just coming off hot in the chat. And if you are interested, I told you I had a few announcements. If you are interested in hosting a Road to SpiceWorld / Spice Core in your area, or if you know a sponsor, if you know a spot, ping me, DM me, slide in my DMs, and I'll hook you up, because 293 days are going to be here before you know it. And that's my second announcement I want to make. If you want to lock in that early bird pricing, we have it live. That's right, it's live on the site. Lock in that $299 rate today, spiceworks.com/SpiceWorld, and join us here in Austin, Texas. It's not only that 2-day event. I told you, we're working on some other stuff. I know a lot of people like, it's 2 days again. Technically, but asterisk, we're going to work on some other stuff to make that SpiceWorld experience as great as you always know it. But one more surprise too. We're going to be back here live in studio here in 2 weeks on February 6th for the Love of IT. That's right. We're going to have February Month of Love themed Spice chat, if you will, Spice live stream, if you will. But again, thank you to Jen for joining us. Guess what I'm doing right now? One more surprise. I'm getting ready to record a podcast with Chief Spice himself. That's right. So keep an eye on that watch party that is also coming soon. So let me go set up for that. Thank you again for joining us today. And don't forget to tech yourself before you wreck yourself. And I'll see you next time.